Looking back, I never imagined my life would go this way. Perhaps I should have recognized the warning signs, but love has a way of making you blind, doesn't it? My name is Nathan, and this is my story. I grew up with honest, hard-working parents. In a small farming town, they taught me the value of perseverance, dedication, and integrity. We weren't wealthy, but we never went hungry, and every meal on our table was the result of our own labor. My youth was spent feeding animals at dawn, working the fields under the sun, and ending the day listening to my father's stories beneath the stars. My life had rhythm, purpose, and structure. Then I met Sophia. She was different from the other girls in my town, more polished, more ambitious. She didn't like getting her hands dirty or waking up before sunrise. Her family wasn't rich, but they valued success and wealth above all else. That's what fueled her need for more. I first saw her standing at the counter of a small shop, completely out of place in her pressed shirt, gold jewelry, and elegant posture. She was engrossed in a business magazine, and yet somehow I was drawn to her. We started talking, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. My life had been simple, but steady. She had big dreams, and she made me believe I could have them too. We balanced each other, or so I thought. Maybe we moved too fast. A year later, we were engaged. My parents, despite their reservations, supported our marriage and even paid for the wedding. They wanted to give us a good start, not because I asked, but because that's just who they were, generous, kind, selfless. My father, a man of few words, gave me advice the night before the wedding. His voice was rough but warm. Love is more than just feelings, son. It's about respect and standing by each other when times get tough. Make sure she understands that too. I nodded, certain that Sophia and I were on the same page. When we got married, my parents bought us an apartment in the city, a place Sophia had always dreamed of living in. I still remember the way her eyes sparkled as we stepped inside, marveling at the marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. She wanted a kitchen with large windows, though she rarely used it. I found a construction job that required long hours, but I didn't mind. I wanted her to be happy. Sophia, on the other hand, wasn't as committed to her job. She tried a few office positions, but always found a reason to quit. "I'm meant for bigger things," she would say. I never argued. I just worked harder. At first, we were happy. We laughed, made plans, and built a life together. My parents never let us struggle. They helped with rent, bought us a car, even paid for vacations. I was grateful. Sophia, however, saw it differently. "They're supposed to help me," she would say, as if their generosity was an obligation rather than a gift. She never truly understood my parents' kindness. She saw it as a transaction, something she was entitled to. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The little ways she dismissed hard work, the way she resented my upbringing, the way she never wanted to visit the farm. "It smells like manure," she'd complain, wrinkling her nose. She refused to help with anything, whether it was fixing a fence or changing the oil in the car. "You're not your farm," she would joke, and I laughed, because I loved her. Love requires compromise, right? But looking back, I realized Sophia never compromised. She stayed, and I kept hoping she'd come to appreciate the life we were building. Believed that love could fix anything, that if you worked hard enough, all differences would fade. My parents had taught me that love was about patience, about standing by each other through hard times. Sophia didn't see it that way. The complaints started small. Our apartment wasn't big enough. My job wasn't impressive enough. One night, she asked, "Nathan, don't you ever want more?" She stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the city lights. "I don't want to be stuck in this cycle forever," she said. "Working a job that doesn't excite me, living in a tiny apartment. I want a bigger life." I told her that hard work builds a foundation that one day we'd have enough to start a business, buy a home, and travel. She sighed. Sophia didn't like waiting. She didn't like effort. She wanted shortcuts. She started surrounding herself with different people, friends who bragged about luxury lifestyles and easy money. One night, after dinner with a wealthy couple, she came home glowing. Lauren's husband invested in a digital business, and now they're millionaires. They barely have to work, she was frustrated, searching for a way to make money without effort. She talked about flipping luxury homes, making passive income, things she had no experience in. That's such a narrow-minded way to think. She scoffed when I told her that every fortune starts from the ground up. And that's when I realized she wasn't looking for success. She was looking for an escape. The final straw came when she suggested I quit my job. "Nathan, don't you want to do something bigger with your life?" she asked. She rolled her eyes when I hesitated. "You could at least try investing. If we put money into the right things, we'd never have to work again." But it wasn't our money. It was my parents' money. The money they had used to support us, to pay for our wedding, our home, our trips, and now she wanted me to gamble it all. I stayed silent, letting her talk. By then I understood Sophia. She never wanted a marriage. She wanted a way out. I knew it was only a matter of time. Then came that Tuesday. A regular, uneventful Tuesday. I came home from work, exhausted, boots covered in dust. Sophia was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. But there was something different. She was smiling, a genuine, radiant smile I hadn't seen in years. "What's up?" I asked. She didn't even look at me. Fingers typing rapidly, she said, "My Uncle Martin died." I blinked. I'm sorry. Are you okay?" Sophia looked up, eyes shining. "Nathan, don't be sad. This is the best news I've ever heard." My stomach twisted. She leaned closer, hands trembling with excitement. "He gave me everything. $10 million. It's all mine." I should have smiled. I should have hugged her. Wasn't this what she had always wanted? Wealth, freedom, a life without work. But instead, I felt something else. Something cold. She had barely known this uncle. She had never spoken about him, yet here she was, beaming at his death, treating it like a lottery win, and in that moment, I knew. She wasn't thinking about our future. She was planning hers, and I was no longer part of it. The moment of truth. She owed $10 million. When she arrived at the house that evening, she looked different. Her once smug attitude, costly clothing, and confidence had vanished. Now, she appeared small, weak, and desperate. She shivered slightly as she stood on my doorstep. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Nathan, could you please open the door?" I didn't move. I just watched as she bit her lip, hesitating. I groaned and pretended to think. "Yeah." Her eyes flicked back to me, wide with desperation. She was pleading now. "You were the only person who ever truly cared for me," she whispered, reaching for my hand. I didn't move. She swallowed hard. "Let me in. Let's work this out." I let the silence stretch before I finally spoke. "You know, Sophia, you once told me you didn't need me anymore, that you never loved me." Nathan's expression crumpled as I took a step back and closed the door in her face. For the first time since she left, I felt free. That night, I slept better than I had in years, because the truth had finally set me free. Sophia never received the $10 million inheritance she had been expecting. She hadn't even reviewed the documents properly. She had just seen the numbers and assumed she was rich. She started spending like she already had the money, but she didn't know the truth. Her uncle, Martin, had left behind a financial disaster. He had invested in a failing real estate venture, borrowing millions to save his crumbling business. The entire estate was tied up in court. Sophia wasn't inheriting millions. She was inheriting debt. When I saw her luxury car up for sale, I knew things were bad. She had boasted online about buying it just a month ago. Now, she was practically begging someone to take it off her hands. Even worse, I found a social media post where she tried to spin her downfall as a fresh start. She wasn't telling the truth, she was pretending this was all part of her plan, but the truth always comes out. Soon, people started calling me. Nathan, you and Sophia broke up? Wow, I always thought you two were solid. Yeah, right. Then, another call. Has she asked you for money yet? I hesitated. No, not yet. Leo, one of her old friends, laughed nervously. She's been asking around. First, small amounts. Now she's talking about short-term loans and investments. That same evening, I got another call. Her voice was rushed, frantic. She wasn't even pretending anymore. I know we ended badly, Nathan, but I really need to talk. Please call me back. It's urgent. I let her sit with that panic for a while. Let her feel what it was like to be ignored. When I finally called back, I was calm. Controlled. What do you need, Sophia? She paused. She hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Nathan. I made some mistakes. I tapped my fingers on the table. Yeah, like when you said you never loved me? She took a deep breath. Look, I just need some help. Just for a little while. I let the silence hang between us. Her voice dropped to a whisper. 50,000, I laughed. 50,000? You really think I'm going to give you $50,000? After everything? She sounded angry now. I'm not asking for a handout, Nathan. It's just temporary. Once this is all sorted, I'll pay you back. I exhaled slowly. Sophia, you made your choice. You walked out of our marriage and said you didn't need me. Now you're only back because you have nowhere else to go. She held her breath. I wasn't finished. You wanted a new life. Well, now you have it. Enjoy it. And I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. I never used to believe in karma. I thought people made choices and life just happened. But after Sophia lost everything, after she vanished from my life, I realized karma always finds its way home. She didn't call again, at least not for a while. At first, she probably still had hope. Maybe she thought she could win back the friends who had surrounded her when she was wealthy. The ones who had laughed with her, partied with her, spent her money like it was endless. But money runs out, and when it did, they disappeared. I started hearing stories. Her so-called friends mocking her behind her back. No more glamorous photos. No more designer clothes, no more dour living my best life. Then I got a text from Dan. I just saw your ex. She called me earlier. It was awkward. She's trying to act like she's still on top, but man, she was asking around about investment opportunities. I laughed out loud. Sophia had never wanted to work. She spent our entire marriage looking for shortcuts, avoiding responsibility. And now, she was scrambling. One day, I saw her at a cafe, her old favorite spot, the one she used to drag me to. She sat alone, staring at her phone, anxiously waiting for a message. When the barista brought her coffee, she hesitated, then pulled out cash instead of a credit card. Her accounts were probably frozen. No more limitless shopping sprees, no more expensive dinners. I felt a twinge of sympathy. Then I remembered her words. Nathan, I don't need you. I never loved you. And just like that, any pity disappeared. I should have known she'd come back. When I heard the knock on my door, I already knew who it was. I opened it. She stood there, drenched from the rain, mascara running, hair tangled. She looked up at me, lips trembling. Nathan, can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What do you want? I just need some help. Just for a little while. I raised an eyebrow. Last time we spoke, you said you didn't need me. She winced. I know I said a lot of things, but please, Nathan. I made a mistake. She took a step forward. I held up a hand, stopping her, Tears welled in her eyes. I have nowhere to go. I sighed, then pointed behind her. Then I guess, you better start walking, her breath caught. Nathan, please. But I wasn't going to save her. She had made her choice, and karma had made sure she paid for it. Without another word, I shut the door. That was the last time I ever saw her. Word spread that she tried moving in with an old friend, but got kicked out. Tried rekindling old relationships, but no one wanted to take on her baggage. And then, she disappeared. No messages, no phone calls, no social media. It was like she had never existed. And I kept my home, my dignity, and my peace. Because karma never misses, and eventually it always comes home.